This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
We're back with Eric Copeland. Excited to have him, the CEO of EMC Consulting and Coaching, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, to talk more today about his amazing coaching, the firm that does it all, really helping a lot of people, especially athletes, thrive, right? Not just in their sport, but in general with career growth, career transitioning, struggles, and so much more. So we are excited to have you back here today, and would love to have you introduce, Ed as well. So please say hello, both of you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
how you doing?
guys. Good. How are we doing today, boys? Go ahead. Tell me, Eric.
Best day of my life.
Beautiful. And Ed, what about you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's hard to follow Eric with that tagline. It's beautiful.
I know. Well, hello. Welcome back. Give us a little overview as to who we are, what we do, and let's do a little recap of where we were. Thank you.
Sure. So, my name is Eric Copeland. I am the CEO of EMC Consulting and Coaching, based here in Atlanta, Georgia. And our company is an executive coaching firm that help athletes not only thrive in their athletics, but also in their personal life. And so, Ed, I guess you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yes, I'm Ed Rohn. I'm a certified leadership coach as well. I work with leaders as well as youth, folks in the youth sports field, leaders in that environment as well as the youth, and leaders in corporate environments as well.
Great. And what we've been talking about, fill us in, Eric.
So the plan is, so we didn't get a chance to finish our last conversation that we had with Ed when we were covering the assessment. And so I want to dive back into the Hogan assessment that we were discussing with Ed, and continue to go through his results. And for those who weren't around for that previous call, the Hogan assessment is an assessment, personality assessment that we use as coaches to assess, who our coaches are, our coachees are, and it measures three things: the HPI, which is the Hogan Personality Inventory, which measures the bright side, how they are when they're happy, easygoing. And then the HDS, the Hogan Development Survey measures who they are when they're, stressed out, how are they as a stressed out person. And then the MVPI, which is the Motives, Values, Personality Inventory, Preference Inventory, measures who they are inside, who they really are. And also employers like to use the MVPI too to see will that person be a good fit in their organization, or will they be a good fit in that role. So those are the main focuses of the Hogan assessment. So with Ed, we're going to kick it off. We're going to dive into your HDS, your Hogan Developmental Survey, which measures or assess how things are we're on the dark side of things. So so with that being said, looking at your survey, one of the things that stood out to me was that your reserve scores were pretty high. So with that being the case, so I guess when you're stressed out or feeling frustrated, do you feel do you like working alone when that happens? Are you a loner?
Yeah, I do have to, and I've been working on that actually. I have the impulse to retreat into my own corner, if you will, create a cocoon of thought. When I feel some form of stress, so that I definitely identify with that reserved aspect of my HDS.
What makes you go into that cocoon? I mean, I guess, you have the fight or flight, but I guess, or flee syndrome. So I guess what makes you want to go into that cocoon?
Well, it's it's difficult to sort it out, I guess, if to give you the honest answer. I'm not used to using the phrase I feel, but I feel like when I experience that stress and I go into that cocoon in my mind, I'm strategizing. I'm figuring out a way to deal with the circumstances I'm around. If I'm honest, there's a level of contempt that I might harbor for the situation and makes me not want to engage with individuals out of a level of self righteousness. And so, yeah, it's something that I've noticed that I do, and that I've been focusing on trying to conquer that particular aspect of my personality.
I guess where I was going with that question was, is it more of a mechanism to protect you from you, or to protect you from others? Meaning, if I go into my cocoon, I won't lash out on somebody else, or if I go into that cocoon, I can kind of, you know, get myself together and calm myself down before I deal with others.
I never really thought about who was being protected by those actions as much as I thought about what I was doing. It'd probably be a mixture of both.
Hmm.
Uh, However, short-sighted, when you get into a stressful situation, to go off into to disengage socially from the environment, it isn't the best way to protect yourself. You probably actually calcify the walls around you, and isolate yourself more. Um, and so, but I think protecting myself from lashing out from others especially in a work environment, is protecting myself, from myself. So I guess the short answer is both.
Okay. All right. Also, too, one of the things too, as part of being reserved, and I guess in a work environment, there's times where you have to do social events. Are you the type of person that like going to a social event, or do you try to get out of going to like the office parties or the or social gatherings?
Well, I think you'll see when you look at my HVPI. I forget the name of the last one, but you look at my value survey, you'll see
Uh-huh.
that my hedonism score is pretty low. So I'm naturally predisposed to staying to myself. I'm more mission driven than I am a social animal in a work environment, most definitely.
So we are having to, I guess, when you're forced to go to a social event like an office party or to a or someone's party, do you find yourself kind of like standing in the corner, or or trying to blend into the wall, or I guess, or
You got me exposing myself, my tactics here. Uh, that is my predisposition. But I'm pretty good at finding an individual or some element of interaction where I can find common ground with folks, and create a cove in which I can interact with, a select group of people. But by no means am I a social butterfly checking in with every pot of individuals having conversations around the room. That takes a lot of energy. However, I like to be like that. But yeah, I usually depend upon some familiarities I have.
gotcha. So, but I guess if you had your rathers, you'd rather not go to some type of party. You rather just, you know, stay at home, or there are certain parties you'd rather go to than not.
No, I'd probably rather not go to them at all, to be honest with you. However, it's a necessary evil. So, I want to be careful not to say that I don't want to do these things. However,
Mhm.
it's not my predisposition to want to do so.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. And also, when I looked at your skeptical scores, I mean, they were pretty high as well. So, do you find yourself being cynical at times?
Yes, yes. I don't know if that's by personality or by training. My bachelor's degree is in history and public policy, and
Uh-huh.
I know a lot of folks out there think that history is about remembering facts and data, but it's more of an investigative science. So it's kind of my nature to from by training actually to doubt and look into things and research stuff. So yeah, it kind of lends itself to skepticism because I've usually researched in a subject matter, and so when I hear things that don't line up with what I read, then that kicks off the skepticism.
Okay. And also too, with being skeptical, do you hold grudges? I mean, because a grudge factor becomes a big piece of that as well. So do you find yourself at time holding grudges?
Uh, I think it ties into that contemptuous part that I mentioned earlier.
Uh-huh.
There was a time when I probably was more beholden to my opinions, um, and it's something I still hedge against. But I've kind of developed in that area, and I'm not as grudge holding as I may have used to be. I try to be a little bit more level headed about those things and keep my opinions in focus and understand the value of them versus the value of achieving a goal or interacting in an organization.
All right. So with that being said, what's the longest you've held a grudge?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not perfect. I probably still got some grudges back in the closet somewhere that I'm holding on to. I'm pretty good about letting time, wash away some wounds or wash away my opinions about things and try not to hold grudges. Uh, but I never, the core of what I evaluated from a situation probably never changes. I think what happens is I strip away my emotional attachment to those ideas or that experience. And so, I still learn a lesson from that engagement, but I don't necessarily hold on to any ill will.
So as a coach or working athletics, I mean, grudges are something that I guess can kind of come up from time to time. And I kind of think about, what happened this past weekend, with University of South Carolina and Connecticut, I guess, those two coaches seem like they had a grudge that been going back for years. So I guess as a coach, how do you or do you get past, grudges with other teams?
No, I don't think you do. And the reason why I say so is because those grudges bring out the best in your competitive nature, but you have to have control of that competitive nature so that you don't make mistakes. Anytime you start to allow the passion of the engagement to guide your decision making, then you're prone to make a bad decision. It could be making a bad call. It could be managing the week of that game or the practices leading up to that game in a negative fashion. Maybe you're too harsh or too tight on the players, and you create an environment where they don't feel free to make mistakes, and now they're playing tight. Uh, or maybe you're calling the game tight, and now you get in a high pressure situation, and you don't stay in the moment, and so you defer to some of that stuff you see in the HDS. Maybe you hide from the moment, or maybe you're skeptical about what the input you're getting from the game, and because you're at a high stress level, you run to what feels comfortable, and so that's where those things can be dangerous. But
Mhm.
at the same time, if you keep that perspective and you can control those aspects of your being, then by all means you want to maintain those rivalries because at their best they're fun.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some of the best sports matches are like where, you have these heated rivalries. And I guess, people hold grudges. And I guess they make some of the best competition because I guess grudges make good matches, right? Like Celtics versus Lakers or, Cowboys versus Redskins, those type deal. So
Yeah, I think it's the perspective, right? What are you doing with this grudge, if you will?
yeah.
Are you using it as competitive fuel, or is it eating at your core and you losing sleep over this grudge? Uh, we have to make sure that we're in control of the tools we use to engage with the environment that we're in. And that grudge, that rivalry is a tool, but we have to be conscious of the fact that we can't let it take control of us. And now all of a sudden we're acting out of character because we're beholden to our feelings, we're beholden to the grudge, we're beholden to the rivalry, and not the mission of running a sound program.
Gotcha. All right. And then the last thing under your HDS was your leisurely score was pretty high. And so it kind of tells me, you're more to your point that you are a cynic. So I guess the question I have for in that regard is, do you find yourself making underhanded comments to people?
I've in the past I've done that a little bit, and I kind of arrested that practice because uh, you do that. If you do it unconsciously, then you don't know the power that you have within the organization. I think that organizations and the power dynamics in the organization are a lot more asymmetrical than we usually discuss. And you can soil the well or create discord within the team, within an organization by voicing your opinion or making your underhanded comments. And so I've one of the first things I did, even before I was exposed to that whole information, I kind of arrested that practice. I arrested the urge to go on to seek the refuge of like-minded people and vent and articulate the problems I have with the situation, because at the end of the day they're poisonous. So that's something that I have done in the past, but I've gotten rid of that particular urge.
It kind of reminds you. I don't know if you've seen this commercial, that Progressive car insurance commercial, being passive progressive, where like one commercial where it has those three ladies in there and they were hanging out and it was like, oh, and they were, I guess, on vacation, like, oh, hotel does have a balcony. I guess you just too cheap to get one. you know, yeah, I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
funny on how being passive aggressive, you know.
Well, the thing is that those HDS scores, they're basically, another way to articulate them is our strengths overused.
You're right.
And so if we're talking about making underhanded comments, how it negatively shows up is me talking shop with people about circumstances or situations or maybe decisions that are being made, and talking shop in the corner with somebody that maybe agrees with where I'm coming from. And so it's not a direct attack on anybody, but it's an attack on the way, people are thinking about things.
All right.
Um, Going back to the conflict resolution conversation we had a while back, that strength is better used when I take it to the person that I'm having that conversation about, or the decision that they made, and I have that shop talk conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
So as I evolve, I don't necessarily say I don't do it anymore, but what I will do is I'll have that conversation with the individual and not, by the water cooler.
All right. So let me ask you this. So how do you handle situations where you get irritated with people? I mean, I guess, yeah, well, how do you handle those situations?
I usually, according to the level of irritation, I probably take some moments or take some time to calm down, so that I can package my message correctly, and I can do it. I can have an objective conversation, um, and then I pick my spot and initiate a conversation with the individual about whatever it is that may have irritated me. Um, and that's got to do with this, if it's mission driven. If it's just something, a personality quirk that I saw that I didn't like or something like that, that's not worthy of conversation. That's something for me to deal with.
Or like, take it outside of work, like, in your personal life, or not necessarily your spouse or anything, but like friends and stuff. I mean, I guess, how do you handle those situations?
Probably the same way. I'm going to take some time and process through it. Think about what exactly, think about what I felt, and then understand it.
Okay.
And then I'm going to see whether or not what I felt is something that is material or something opinionated. If it's opinionated, then I'm going to eat it because that's my problem. If it's material and it makes the relationship dysfunctional, then I'm going to address it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So moving on now to your MPVI, which is your motives. I'm sorry, MVPI, your motives, values, preference indicator. Your power was pretty high. Um, so I guess with that being said, I guess are you interested in competition? I mean, I guess are you a very competitive person?
Yeah, yeah, I am. Um, I enjoy it, and that's the reason why I like coaching. That's the reason why I like framing my coaching engagements from a perspective of of optimizing performance, because I think that everybody's competing ultimately with themselves, and so when we evaluate our performance and we're not happy about it, we're using the scoreboard, or we're using the promotion, or we're using the our social uh, our social status as a reflection of our ability to compete. But ultimately, it's about bettering ourselves and being competitive with the last version of ourselves, before we went to sleep.
So how important is it for you to win?
Um, Extremely important. But what am I winning? Um, Winning, once again, is about becoming a better version of yourself.
Hmm.
Winning is about learning from every interaction, every circumstance, every individual, every situation. And so if I get a material win, but I'm no better as an individual, then that's not a win. So the wins, to shorten my answer, the wins are internal. The wins are about perspective and being a better version of myself, not necessarily what everybody else can see from the outside.
Gotcha, gotcha. I know, living here on the East Coast, Southeast specifically, we had two coaches, Nick Saban and Mark Rick. And one of the things I guess a lot of fans would compare it to was like Nick Saban is a guy who needed to win, whereas Mark Rick was a person who wanted to win. I guess if you had to pick which one would you be a need to win guy or a want to win guy? Because a need to win guy would kind of win at all costs, whereas a want to win, win, when it's right.
I think so. I don't know if I necessarily see the breakdown the same way as you do. Let me go into that a little bit.
Okay.
I think that a need to win person, I think that the definition that you ascribe to them are inverted. I think that the need to win person will do whatever it takes, and the want to win person will do whatever it takes, and the need to win person will um will do it the right way. And reason being is that if you need to win, I think that you need to win. That's a will thing. And I think that the preparation and the structure that you build into the way you go about your executing your game plan or attacking whatever goal that you're going to attack is going to be fundamental. You need to win everything. It's like John Wooden. You got to win putting on your shoes. You got to win putting on your socks. You got to win at the small things that's in your routine. I
Right.
think if you want to win, um, that's more. That's not based on routine. That's based on desire. And if your desire is about your outcomes, that doesn't necessarily translate into strong routines, because you just want the win. You want the result. You don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily want to live the process.
Right. Well, I guess how it was articulated here, especially with at that time, was like the Georgia versus Alabama, because
Mhm.
Nick Saban and a lot of people' opinion and minds was that he needed to win, so he was going to do anything he would or he could to win. Whereas Mark Rick, being the easygoing, Christian guy, he definitely wanted to win, but he wasn't going to go, I guess, above and beyond and all out, whether it was right or wrong. I mean, but that was the perception and how a lot of people here in this state kind of perceive things, whether it's right or wrong. But that was the basis of that analogy. All right.
Understood.
Yeah. So also looking at your scores too, your tradition was pretty high. So that traditions kind of, measuring, you see things going a certain way or having to be a certain way. So let me ask you this. So how do you handle moral ambiguity?
Oh, wow. Elaborate on what you mean by moral ambiguity.
Meaning that, that it is not necessarily wrong if you did something a different way than the norm. If say you had to make a left turn, like you're running a marathon, there's no quote unquote set way to get to the finish line. So you could technically take a different route to get to the finish line. So it's not necessarily cheating per se, but just not going the same way everybody else is going.
Well, I mean, to use the marathon example, uh, I think taking a different route. Are you ducking off in the bushes and hopping in a taxi and then getting a ride to the finish line, or are you just running a different route? I think there's levels to that. Outside of a strict situation where the course is charted, if we're talking about coaching or developing people, um, you know you have to have flexibility, and you have to put the mission or the goal or the end at the top of the pyramid where it belongs, or at the end of the course, and you have to figure out a course that's most um achieve that's smart. That's the smartest, more like a smart goal for the individual that's trying to undertake that course. And I think that translates into business or operations, um, because a lot of times things are philosophical.
Hmm.
People develop philosophies about how things are supposed to be done, and they want things done a specific way. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to get things done. If we're talking about strict moral situations, then I probably would reserve comment for a specific situation.
Gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha. I mean, you know, and we're like, there's no set defined rules, in terms of um, that you have to do certain things a certain way. So I guess a a rule of thumb, or I guess a saying that some people say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that or
Yeah,
is only cheating if you get caught? So
yeah, I would say that well, when you put it in those phrases, then that's not a statement that I would openly identify with. Um, you know, I don't want to cheat at doing anything. Maybe I'll be creative in the way that I approach things. Maybe I'll wrap my mind around it and look at the dynamics of the situation. But if I drift into waters, the cheating waters, if you will, then that's beyond where I want to operate.
I mean, because like if a rule doesn't necessarily call it out, is it fair game?
That's circumstantial, and I think that's really about what type of culture that you subscribe to, what type of philosophy you subscribe to. I it's very gray, but I'm going to say that I'm going to still ebb on the side of doing things the way that I'm expected, with the amount of margin that I'm allowed, and yeah, that's where I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay on the less ambiguous side of the morality, if you will.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's fair. I'm not trying to get you, trap you into a, a moral paradigm here, and just, saying just, what basically are your parameters or your boundaries in terms of
And
when you're
guys,
making decisions.
whatchamacallit, I just want to interrupt here to let
I'm
people
sorry.
know. No, don't be sorry. Eric Copeland, we still got more time here. Just for those listening, EMC Consulting and Coaching, go ahead.
Oh, yes. So no, like I said, I'm not trying to get you in a moral bind here. I'm just, just trying to get your parameters in terms of, you know, is it, I guess, what kind of keeps you on the in the straight and narrow. because with a high tradition, I mean, that does mean that, that you're pretty straight by the book, and then, if there's gray areas, people with a high tradition typically don't stray into those gray areas. So
Yeah, no,
that makes sense.
but now that we talk about it, and I think I kind of roundabout articulated that point, uh, but to hammer it home, I think yeah, definitely that's the way I am. Even let's take it out of a moral concept and let's look at operations.
Hmm.
Let's look at everything that I've said about routine and how to structure and how structure creates freedom. I think
Hmm.
that's born out of that traditional score. That's born out of me not operating in the gray area because if the boundaries you start off with your boundaries wide and there's a lot of margin, a lot of gray area, then I think that you rob yourself of some freedom at the opportune time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so yeah, I don't necessarily I don't agree with that just from a tactical standpoint and strategic and value. Yeah,
Right.
I would think that's correct.
Well, also too, like, for instance, as a coach, you have a certain routine that, hey, we do this before we do this drill, and we do this drill before we do that drill. Like, like this week, would you change up your drills just to kind of, you know, get the players going? Because if you're noticing that they're not necessarily into it or not motivated, you may have to change the way you do things. Is that's something that you as a coach would consider maybe changing up the routine?
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. As long as we
Yeah.
have a structure, and that's the reason why I believe in structures because structure is like Legos. Like I can take a Lego out and move it around and restructure whatever little toy that I built. It doesn't have to stay rigid, but it has to maintain structure.
But I noticed you come back to that word structure though. So you got to have structure, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's non-negotiable for me.
Gotcha. Which makes
Six three
sense.
one 307 4010. The lines are open if you have any questions. 631 307 4010. Go ahead.
Yeah, which makes sense as a person with a high tradition that hey, structure is definitely pretty high for you. So, all right, and the last part of your MPVI or MVPI, excuse me, is commerce. I mean, commerce is more on the money side of things or the incentive side, financial incentive side of things. So I guess, do you find yourself being motivated by compensation?
Yes. But that's even that is something that I began to try to reevaluate. And we're talking about structure, kind of move around in terms of priority and structure. I think that it is very important because it's power. It's power, and calcified and well, it was ones and zeros now as it used to be dollar bills, but we're moving away from that. Um, but yes, it's important because you can achieve the things that you want to achieve, whether it be me working with a youth sports organization and fundraising, or raising a family, or doing any of the other things that you may want to enjoy personally. Commerce is very important, and I do find myself uh, definitely in the top quadrant of decision making points. Putting commerce up there pretty high.
So how and why is compensation important?
Because I like to be able to do what I want power. Going back to the other measure, I want the power to do things that I enjoy. I want the power to be able to influence uh, situations for the positive, whether it be like I say, I can help support my youth sports organization, support my family, or just enjoy a good time for myself.
Now, do you weigh all your decisions based on compensation? Like, meaning, is it financial beneficial for my family or whatever to do this, or is it a case by case? I guess, how does that, how do you weigh compensation when you're making decisions?
I so that's the piece where I've grown and I evolved. A young version of me would try to use that as the primary lens to evaluate a situation, and I think that that is that was a poor structure to follow
Mm-hmm.
because there's more elements to making decisions or a good fit in terms of a professional situation than commerce. Um, if I'm giving advice to a young person now that has a high commerce score, I wouldn't tell them to ignore it or try to defeat it, but to put it in perspective. You in our economy, your commercial success is a protracted experience. The majority of us don't, get out of college or get out of high school and start at the top of the earning scale. It's going to take time. And so when you go to evaluate a situation as a young person, you should probably put your 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 your, your establishment in your field of endeavor above commerce, because in the long term, that's what's going to give you the type of income that you're looking for.
Right.
And so I think that I've learned to put that particular score in perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
now that might look like taking a volunteer position or doing an internship or something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to establish myself from a professional standpoint, both skill wise,
Yeah.
experience wise, and from a networking perspective, versus just looking at a job and picking the one that makes the most money, where it may not be a fit personality wise, or it may be a dead end because that number is as far as that position will carry you. So I've had to learn to regulate that particular value.
Right. So I know you have that saying, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I mean, I guess it's like you've kind of evolved from that, correct?
Yes, yes. Or expanded it. I think it all. I think it may all makes dollars if you're doing the right thing.
Hmm.
It just might not materialize in the moment, but you have to stay dedicated to whatever your craft is or whatever your field of endeavor is, and be consistent. You build a structure into the way that
Yeah.
you want to approach what you do and your growth
Mm-hmm.
path, and then stay consistent with like I say, stay consistent with what you're doing, and then it will make sense.
Got you, got you. No, I mean, definitely, and like said on the previous call, like there is no good or bad in terms of these different ratings, because like the MPVI, the MVPI, I mean it measures who you are. I mean, so those are the things that motivate you. So it's not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I mean, that's who you are. I mean, so if
Yeah.
you're high on power or high on tradition and commerce, I mean that's who you are as a
Oh,
person. So
so
that's
we
what we
got a
want
call. Hi, welcome to the show. You are live on the line. Who's this? Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Who's this?
Patricia.
Hi, Patricia. Just letting you know you are live on the air, and just want to make sure that's okay with you. Eric Copeland joining us here live, as you, I'm sure, have been listening to him and Ed Roan. Any questions you have for these two gentlemen today?
Well, yeah, actually I do. I'm currently a nanny, and I'm thinking about going into the corporate world, like switching careers. What type of advice would you give me?
Well, I would say what it is. I guess the question I have for you: what is that you want to do in the corporate world?
I was thinking about maybe trying my hand at like financial, like banking,
I'm sorry, what was that?
Financial
like
banking, I think she said.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Go ahead.
all right.
yeah,
Is that something you're interested in?
yes, I am.
Okay. Um, I would say, have you done anything in terms of, I guess, what research have you done in that regards, in terms of that piece?
Well, when I was a little bit younger, I went to college like for accounting, and like I kind of liked dealing with numbers,
Okay.
and so I figured I'd go into that.
Okay. Um, I would definitely suggest then look for companies in your area that are looking for and I guess what particular field in finance that you're interested in.
I was thinking like oh gosh, what is it called? Like a financial advisor,
Okay.
like investments.
Uh-huh. All right. And I guess in college, did you take any courses on that, or did you do anything in that line in terms of investing or investing
A little
management?
bit. Yes, a
Okay.
little bit.
All right. And I guess have you done that recently, just like from a personal standpoint, or just as a practice, just trying to hone your skills?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Like home
Uh,
skills.
yeah. So I guess in that regard, I would definitely reach out to, I guess see what's in the market, and reach out and see
Mm-hmm.
what opportunities are available, and then also too, um, I know we were talking about compensation here, but maybe as a pro bono way to kind of build your skills up, give some or offer some pro bono work to people as a way to kind of get your name in the market, and then kind of use that to kind of help build your skills to, get you, like I said, get your name in the market to get yourself out there to where you can, call on companies to use your skills. I don't know, Ed, if you want to add anything to what I just said.
I think I would. Did you like being a nanny?
Yeah, I did, but it got very like physical, I guess you would say.
Okay. What did you like about it?
Like dealing with the children, trying to teach them stuff and stuff like that.
Okay. So you like to you care for the children and you like to teach people things. Um,
Yes,
if you broke those two elements down to that job, do you think you can itemize a couple of transferable skills that line up with being a financial advisor?
I think so.
So I would
Teach
look
people
at.
how to,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know, just like how to teach people what to invest in and stuff like that.
So along with what Eric was saying, I would start looking at my transferable skills and my why, and develop a
Uh-huh.
personal story about your experience as a nanny and how it translates to helping people as a financial advisor. Build take care of their families. You're becoming a nanny of a different sort, I would say, and I would build that story and use that to present myself to these firms that you reach out to as you work to make your transition.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All
Yeah,
right,
because
that's very good advice.
as a nanny, I mean, you're managing, resources right now, right? I mean, because that's what you do. You're managing resources. So I mean, as Ed was alluding to, I mean, you're basically doing that just on a different scale.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Hmm.
You're welcome.
You're
It was
welcome.
very helpful.
Right.
Thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it. Thank you. Again, lines are
Thank you.
open 631-307-4010. If you have any questions, 631-307-4010. All right, let's continue, gentlemen. Where do we leave
All
off?
right. So we were just wrapping up the MVPI. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
with all that we discussed, Ed, I guess, is there anything in particular from the HDS, the MVPI, or even the HPI that we discussed a few weeks ago that you want to focus on, in terms of creating a development plan, or if you had to create a development plan?
Well, if I was creating a development plan, I think some of the stuff in my HDS, obviously, I wanted to develop the reserve piece, to continue to look at that. Um, Maybe the bold piece, and develop a plan that approaches those scores from the concept of those being strengths that are overused,
Hmm.
so that I can learn how to use them more tactically and not be over reliant upon them. Being a history major, I think about nuclear detente, and how nuclear bombs were used once, but it's just been the threat of nuclear bombs that's been used ever since that point. And I think about those possible derailers or those strengths overused in the same vein, where if I have these weapons in my arsenal, that if I overuse them, they'll create a radioactive situation. How can I still use these weapons in my stockpile, to advance myself, but to be a better partner, a better coach, and a better a better member of an organization.
Gotcha. So you mentioned reserve. So I guess, is there anything in particular that you would want to do to address that particular attribute?
Well, I think so. I have to find balance, right? If
Hmm.
if if I think about it from as a coach, I think about it as say a football player or a baseball player. If I see a pitch, it's my pitch, I attack it. If I see action toward, if I'm a linebacker and I see action in towards the gap I'm responsible for, I
Yeah.
attack it. In organizations and with people, when you see openings like that, you can't attack them. You have to be a little bit more uh, controlled about the way you approach situations. And for me, that creates a certain amount of anxiety because I'm tuned to want to attack things. And so when I think about that reserve piece, I
Yeah.
think that score reflects me not managing the space between stimulus and response correctly because I can't go to my strength. And so I retreat. And that's not a healthy way to be simply because it's not balanced.
Right.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to when I had that stress, I don't need to I shouldn't retreat simply because I can't attack. I
Right.
need to be able to hold my ground and engage effectively from that space.
But you don't have to necessarily attack it all at one time, right? I mean, because like reserve, for instance, I mean, and we were talking about going to a social event. I mean, if you maybe pick a person or two just to talk to, I mean, at least you're somewhat engaged in the event. So you're not necessarily being, trying to blend into the wall. You're actually appearing to be engaging. And, if you do that enough in terms of talking to more people, you'll be surprised that, at some point you may end up finding to talk to everybody in the whole room at some point, and then you're not as a you become more of a social butterfly,
Yeah.
so I mean, so you just kind of tackle it, one event at a time, one person at a time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does. It does. And I think even if I challenge myself and take that a step further, um, maybe there is a room for me to be more of myself and structure my attacking the room to where I mentioned earlier that I wasn't the type of person that goes and
Yeah.
talk to all of those different silos, and maybe that's because I don't feel like I have something to offer
Yeah.
each silo,
Hmm.
but maybe I should attack that assumption and go and say hello to everybody, and maybe that's the first step. Maybe I do go and talk to each one of those silos and make my presence known and begin to I guess break the ice, if you will, that way.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, he ain't got to necessarily just go and scream hello to everybody in the room, or to the whole room at one time, but just pick, one or two people that you're comfortable, that you feel or that appear to be comfortable to you, and just speak to them, and then, just kind of work your way around the room, as they say, work the room.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good accountability point you can hold me to. We can talk about later and make sure
Okay.
that when I'm in these environments that I present myself differently.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Was there was there another skill or another attribute that you mentioned you wanted to address? I think you said bold or
Yeah, we didn't talk about bold. What do you think about my bold score? If I
Ah.
remember, it was pretty high.
well, it was high, but it wasn't, I guess in the above the 90% range. Um, um, so I didn't necessarily, analyze
So
it too in
what
depth
was the? There was another one that was above 90% on that HDS. Which one is that?
on your HDS. Hold on, let me. How we doing on time, Jill?
Yeah, we are about 6 minutes out, so you got six
Okay.
minutes left. Yep.
Yeah, you're citable. So, so on your citable scale, I guess, yeah, that was pretty high on your HDS. So, um, do you find yourself getting excited when things go awry?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it. I can identify with being with having a temper, if you will. I think all that stuff works together, and that's definitely something that I need to continue to work through and develop. It might be a little bit trickier because I think that those things are more physiological, and so that's part of the reason why I always take time before I have conversations with people because I do get excited, however that manifests itself.
I
Um,
guess tell me more about the physiological. You said in terms of it manifesting. Tell me more about that.
so if I feel the physical signs. I experience the physical symptoms of anger. You get hotter. Your hands may get to trembling. You got energy that you got to displace. It's a boost in energy.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the reason why I've developed a cooling off period into me going into conflict resolution.
So
Um,
what do you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I guess what do you do to, I guess, quote unquote, calm yourself down or get yourself in control?
well, strategically, I've been working on changing my perspective about certain things. Evaluating the nature of my opinions and how valuable they are. In other words, is the opinion that I have about this particular situation or circumstance worth me being angry about? Um, or is it something that I need to evaluate from a more calmer perspective? So strategically, I try to think differently and change my perspective about things. Tactically, go for a walk, breathe, take deep breaths. But it's something that I'm very interested in trying to regulate because I think that it's of the same nature as an athlete who gets in a situation and gets nervous and may not perform at their highest level because the feelings of the moment, their physical feelings are bigger than the moment, and so they
Mhm.
choke. And so I think out of everything, that particular score is something that I need to develop a plan around, so I can continue to be accountable for regulating myself in these situations so that I can perform in those situations and not necessarily choke. I want to be able to rise to the occasion.
So is there a particular situation that gets you like the most excited, or is it? Yeah, I guess there's a particular situation that gets you going.
Well, I think let's point at those other scores. Let's look at that traditional score. When things are out of tradition or things aren't necessarily out of structure, and there's not communication about us deviating from the plan. That's something that's a trigger, if you will. Um, you know, uh, when people have maybe a value system that I don't necessarily subscribe to, I need to grow more patient with those circumstances. A lot of it is derived from the HVPI.
So if someone calls an audible, so that's a trigger for you, or
Well, I mean, is it? Yeah, if we built it into the play, if that's something that we talked about ahead of time, if we have the audibles organized, then so be it.
but if you have to
Uh,
improvise,
yeah,
improvising that's a societal situation for you.
no, that's not excitable. The
Okay,
players got to play. They're not robots. So
okay.
I expect them to as long as they can justify what they did based on the circumstance or situation. That's not a problem. That's not really I think the people responsible for the structure around it are more prone to trigger me versus a kid calling an audible on the field.
And I meant audible as in life, not necessarily audible in the game type audible. I meant more audible in like somebody changes a plan altogether. Not necessarily in a football game or a basketball game. That type audible. I was talking more in terms of the game of life.
Fair enough, but that doesn't make sense. Do I think it makes sense?
Man, I was in
You see where it comes into my opinion of things. Does it make sense to me? Do I agree with it, or is it an audible that I think it doesn't make sense to me? And just because I think it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it doesn't make sense, or doesn't mean that my opinion of it is that it doesn't make sense. Those are the things that I want to be able to process through, and regulate myself through, so that I can communicate through these situations and not necessarily reserve judgment and then have to walk back my judgment to come to resolution.
So an audible, just so I'm clear, so an audible, quote unquote audible that accomplishes the same goal won't get you excited unless it's an audible that doesn't accomplish the goal that will get you excited, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
So when we're talking about being excited, I think that I know I'm going to lay myself out there and say it's more arbitrary than that.
Okay.
Because it may accomplish the same goal, but my initial perspective, when I first hear the audible or encounter the situation, I might not see that because I've gotten so excited about the fact that things have went differently than I thought they should go. You see, so that's what I'm talking about is I need to use my powers of evaluation and analysis before I react to the situation, not react to the situation and then analyze and say, you know what, that does work.
So who is it incumbent upon, you or the person that's making the audible, to get you comfortable?
It's always incumbent upon me.
Okay.
All right.
I have we barely have control over ourselves, let alone other folks. So I don't try to put any type of expectations on other people.
Well, no, what I mean by that, I mean, do you want them to explain to you why they did what they did and what they're trying to do at the time, or I guess, do you want, or you just have to figure it out for yourself? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where in that.
And we gotta get wrapping. Sorry, guys.
Okay, no problem. I'll finish up. I would. It would be nice if they explain themselves, but if I want to understand, I need to ask questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. I mean, I know it was ultimately it's you, but I mean, at some point, at what point do they give the ball to you or give it over to you to get an understanding? So, but no, I want to thank you for allowing me to review your Hogan with you, and it was really interesting.
Great.
Really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, guys. How do we contact you?
Well, you can contact me via my website at emcconsultingcoaching.net. That's emcconsultingcoaching.net.
And you can go to contact me. You can go to xerxed.com, XERED unlimited at gmail.com, or you can email me at ed@xerxedunlimited.com.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll talk hopefully again next week. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for all this information. Thanks to our caller who called in, and hopefully we'll do more next time. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.